The Wall Street Journal reports this morning that a new report ordered by Avril Haines, Joe Biden's director of national intelligence, reveals that America's spy agencies are purchasing information on you and me, on American citizens. They're buying it from independent, for-profit data brokers who mine our credit card receipts, phone calls, smartwatches, automobiles, and location trackers. The Wall Street Journal writes that anyone can purchase this data, not just the American government. For example, depending on what you need, what kind of information you need, you can buy information to find out whether or not to lend money or to rent you an apartment, or you can get information from these data miners to discover whether or not someone would make a good husband. The individual data points might amount to nothing, but when pieced together properly, they can paint a picture that, while it doesn't hold up in court, would be very embarrassing enough to coerce someone into doing something they wouldn't normally do out of fear this information would come out. Compromise. It begs several questions, one of which is, why are America's spy agencies spying on American citizens? And with the billions we budget each year for 18 separate spy agencies here in America that we know about, with all that money we spend on 18 separate spy agencies, why do we have to buy information from private vendors? Now, it's important to remember that our 18 spy agencies use outside contractors to do a lot of their administrative work, as well as spying. Never forget that when whistleblower Edward Snowden leaked classified material 10 years ago to the media, he was working not for the government. He was working for the private contractor Booz Allen Hamilton, which Bloomberg calls, quote, the world's most profitable spy agency. This is not a government agency. This is a for-profit spy agency, Booz Allen Hamilton, which Edward Snowden was working for when he leaked all that classified material. Booz Allen Hamilton is made up of former spies, ex-CIA agents. It does business, you would think, just with America out of patriotism. No, it does business all around the world, working for American spy agencies as well as spy agencies in the Middle East. And of course, they work for corporations. They're consultants. I wonder what kind of consulting they do. I wonder what kind of information they can share with a Fortune 500 company. So what we have with our spy agencies is a revolving door. Spies, American spies, or CIA employees who leave one of America's 18 spy agencies, doesn't have to be the CIA, they leave one of America's 18 spy agencies to go work for a subcontractor like Booz Allen Hamilton. And then they get hired back to work for the government, but they get paid a lot more as a subcontractor. It's why a lot of soldiers quit and go work for Eric Prince. You can make six figures as a gun for hire working for Eric Prince. So Eric Snowden, who's living in Russia these days, he left the CIA. He left the CIA to go work for Booz Allen Hamilton. He did this on purpose because he knew that it was the subcontracting work for Booz Allen Hamilton that would allow him to get his hands on documents proving that James Clapper, who had Avril Haines' old job as Director of National Intelligence under President Obama, he got his hands on documents that prove James Clapper lied under oath before Congress when he testified that the NSA was not spying on Americans. Edward Snowden went to work for the private contractor Booz Allen Hamilton to get his hands on documents proving that the NSA is in fact spying on Americans with the help of our telecommunications companies.
I've been indicted twice now in a couple of months.
Yes, you have. Former President Donald Trump, you've been indicted twice. The most recent indictment is over mishandling classified material. You're accused of violating the Espionage Act, the same thing that Edward Snowden is accused of, and it's why he's living in Russia. We will never know what classified material Donald Trump kept for himself. I like to think that our spy agencies knew enough not to let him see anything. And that's the problem. You see, whether I like it or not, Donald Trump was elected democratically. So he was elected. Our spy agencies are not. They answer to nobody. So we have a conundrum here in the United States. How do we keep a loose cannon, a guy like Donald Trump, from reclaiming the White House and then populating the 18 spy agencies under his command with toadies who will not just hand him over all the files he wants on his political enemies, they will also do some more spying on him as ordered. They will do some more spying for him as ordered. How do we stop a madman like Donald Trump from turning these spy agencies into his own little shop? How do we stop him from spying on American citizens, especially when our spy agencies are already spying on American citizens? So this indictment raises a lot of important questions about classified material and spying. Why do we have 18 separate spy agencies that we know about? Why does the Department of Energy have its own spy agency? Why does the Pentagon have its own spy agency? Isn't the whole idea of a CIA, wasn't the whole idea of the CIA to serve as a check on the military? The whole point of the CIA was to provide independent analysis to make sure the Pentagon sticks to what it does best, waging war. And why does the CIA have its own army? Why is the CIA these days under Joe Biden ordering and then performing armed drone strikes? They've taken that away from the military after the debacle in Afghanistan. Now it's the CIA doing the intelligence and the military strike. The CIA is supposed to provide actionable intelligence that our Defense Department is then supposed to use. We already saw what happens when the CIA runs its own military operations. We end up with fiascos like the Bay of Pigs. Speaking of pigs, Donald Trump should die in prison for mishandling classified documents. Absolutely. But when he was president, and this is the problem, when he was president, he was entitled to see everything. All the spy agencies are located inside the executive branch. He's the commander-in-chief. They answered to Donald Trump. And I don't like the idea of individual leaders of our 18 spy agencies deciding by themselves whether or not they can trust the commander-in-chief. As I said earlier, I like to think that those classified documents Donald Trump was waving at those biographers for Mark Meadows at Bedminster that they were garbage documents because our spy agencies knew enough not to give him anything important. But I don't like the idea of spy agencies deciding what our commander-in-chief can see and what he can't see. I don't like the idea of them withholding information from anyone, especially our unfortunately, duly elected president. So the threat to America isn't that a sociopath like Donald Trump can get elected again as president and then get his hands on our spy agencies and use them to subjugate his enemies. No. The threat to America is this tangled web of spy agencies acting under the cloak of secrecy, off the books. We don't know who's paying them and why. They have hidden budgets. They're working with private subcontractors like Booz Allen Hamilton, working with and for them. We don't know what they're doing. That's the threat to our democracy, or at least what's left of it. I'm for a strong federal government, but I am for a pared down military and an even more pared down intelligence agency. It's too unwieldy. 18 intelligence agencies that we know of to justify their paychecks. They're doing way too much spying. Why are they purchasing data from data brokers? Why are they buying information on American citizens? You know, the heads of these agencies like to say, "You'll never know the terrorists we stop." To which I say, you will never know the terrorists you've created. Every drone strike overseas, every time it succeeds, it always has some collateral damage that kills somebody's wife or baby. Now, you think you've killed a terrorist. You might have, but you've also given birth to 5 more. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's only one way to find out: full transparency. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost in Vietnam. Maybe the reason we have so many classified documents that nobody is allowed to see, maybe these documents are classified to keep secret the names of the American officials who are to blame for all this failure. Failure in Iraq, failure in Afghanistan, failure to keep us safe on 9/11, failure in Vietnam, failure that has cost millions and millions of lives and cost you and me trillions of dollars. No, I don't trust Donald Trump with classified material. I want him to die in prison. But in a democracy, we should be able to elect a buffoon for president because the president shouldn't be that important. He shouldn't have so many spy agencies at his disposal. Why is our government spying on all of us? Who is the government working for, and where does all that information end up? Those are some of the questions we should all ask ourselves while Donald Trump goes on trial for mishandling classified documents. Here's hoping he dies in prison. Bad day for Donald Trump. Tuesday was a bad day for Donald Trump. I mean, besides the obvious, we'll get to that. In the E. Jean Carroll defamation trial, where a jury has already awarded her $5 million in damages, the judge ruled on Tuesday that lawyers for E. Jean Carroll can now amend their lawsuit and include comments Donald Trump made last month during a CNN town hall, where Trump referred to E. Jean Carroll as a quote-unquote whack job. And he still insists he never met her. Trump is appealing the jury's decision that he sexually assaulted her and defamed her. Carroll's attorneys are expected to ask for more money. And more bad news for Trump. The new inflation numbers came out on Tuesday, and there's no question that inflation is cooling off. New inflation numbers say prices rose modestly in the past month, which may convince Fed Chair Jerome Powell to put a brake on raising interest rates. The S&P and NASDAQ both hit 13-month highs on Tuesday in response to this inflation news. Donald Trump, Tuesday morning, let's get to it. He woke up in his Doral Hotel in Miami and headed over to a federal court for his arraignment on 31 counts of violating the Espionage Act alone. The Doral, by the way, settled out of court recently with a visitor who said the bed bugs were so bad he ended up with welts, lumps, and marks over much of his face, neck, arms, and torso. Something to keep in mind if you're thinking of staying at Donald Trump's Doral in Florida. Since Trump purchased the Doral, Florida's health department has cited his kitchen for numerous violations, including cockroaches, flies, filthy appliances, and my favorite, cold shrimp, cheese, pork, fish, and eggs served at temperatures 20 degrees too warm. In other words, they serve cold shrimp, cheese, pork, fish, and eggs, and it's supposed to be cool so you don't get sick. And the health department says, this is 20 degrees too warm. Well, Trump's motorcade pulled up at the Wilkie D. Ferguson Jr. U.S. Courthouse in Miami at around 2 p.m. Eastern Tuesday. Supporters greeted him in the 90-degree heat. Although Trump sent word out through social media to his supporters, the army of MAGA supporters never really showed up. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, he's a Republican, was prepared for 50,000 Trump supporters, but it looks like a couple of hundred showed up, if that, not too many. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez has reportedly not decided yet as to whether or not he would run against Trump for the Republican presidential nomination. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez is thinking of running for president. He said he will be giving a big speech at the Reagan Library where he might reveal his intentions. So why would somebody you don't know, nobody knows who the mayor of Miami is, why would he run for president? Nobody knows who he is. Well, the Miami Herald reported 3 days ago this, and this is why he's running. There are two separate federal investigations into South Florida developer Rishi Kapoor and his relationship with the mayor. Both the FBI and the SEC are looking into the permitting process for a $70 million Coconut Grove development that this developer Kapoor wanted to build. The SEC and the FBI separate investigations are looking into how the permit process for the $70 million development related to the $10,000 a month the Miami mayor was paid by Kapoor as a consultant. I didn't know that the mayor of Miami can collect $10,000 a month as a consultant to a real estate developer, South Florida developer Rishi Kapoor. That is why he's running for president. He has to run for president because if you're a candidate for president, then you can't be accused by the FBI or the SEC of bribery or graft. Suddenly, it's a witch hunt. It's politically motivated. It's the Biden administration going after his enemies. Trump taught the mayor this. And here's the mayor of Miami. Here he is. Francis Suarez, outside the courthouse, being greeted. Here he is, being greeted by voters Tuesday.
We got a deep state mayor. We got a deep state corrupt mayor. We got a deep state swamp monster. We got a swamp monster, folks. We got a big swamp monster. The swamp's getting rounded up, baby. The time's coming, baby. The swamp's getting taken down. And you're getting taken down, brother.
Deep state swamp monster. If you're going to be indicted, run for president. Well, inside the courthouse, while that was going on, Donald Trump, at around 2:45 Eastern, went before U.S. Magistrate Judge Jonathan Goodman. The case has been assigned, however, to Judge Eileen M. Cannon, who presided over the FBI search. It wasn't a raid. It was a search of the Mar-a-Lago estate. And she made several rulings that were favorable to Trump. They were eventually overruled by an appeals court. Judge Cannon was appointed by Donald Trump. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, entered a plea of not guilty as special counsel Jack Smith reportedly stared deep into Trump's eyes, and not in the romantic way. The judge ordered Trump not to speak with any witnesses. All in all, the hearing lasted less than an hour. As Trump's motorcade left the courtroom, well, a protester jumped in front of his vehicle. But because this is America, and it was an elderly gentleman dressed up he was in some prison garb. Our police understand the importance of political theater and the First Amendment right to demonstrate. He jumped in front of the president's car, and so police, very gently, respecting his First Amendment rights, wrestled this elderly gentleman to the ground. So that would be four officers crushing his back with the knee just to handcuff him, pressing his face against the cement. Isn't that wonderful? On his way home, Trump stopped off in Little Havana to eat at a restaurant called Versailles, where diners there sang happy birthday to him. On Wednesday, Trump turns 77. While waiting for his food, religious leaders prayed for Trump. They put their hands on him, including several Orthodox rabbis who might want to take a break from reading the Torah and pick up a book on European history to gain a better appreciation of who exactly Donald Trump is and what his plans are for you and anyone else not white, Christian, heterosexual, male, and born into wealth. Earlier in the day, Florida Senator Marco Rubio pointed out that Donald Trump is going to have a hard time finding representation. He can't find lawyers.
I mean, what lawyer licensed to practice in the Southern District of Florida, works at a firm whose clients aren't going to complain if he signs up the president, can get the clearance to do a national security, and is actually a good lawyer? How hard is that going to be to find?
Especially when you don't pay your lawyers. Everybody works for free. It's tough. It's tough to, who would want to be Trump's lawyer? You get your reputation destroyed and you don't get any money in return. And nobody knows this better than the flailing Alan Dershowitz, who defended Trump during the first impeachment trial. He appeared on college dropout Charlie Kirk's radio show. And Kirk talked about him yesterday. He runs Turning Points. It's And, he's a big supporter of Donald Trump. He recently called on all Republican presidential candidates to suspend their campaigns after Trump was indicted again. He said, suspend your campaigns and show up in Miami to lend moral support to Trump. It's kind of weird using the word moral in the same sentence as Donald Trump. So Charlie Kirk thinks Donald Trump is innocent, but here is Jeffrey Epstein's old buddy, Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law, Alan Dershowitz, telling Charlie something he didn't want to hear about Donald Trump.
You have called on this program the most serious of all the potential indictments against Donald Trump. Do you still feel that way now actually reading the indictment itself?
I do, especially the provision in which Donald Trump foolishly waved some paper in front of a reporter while he was being recorded by his own staff. And he said, I could have declassified this, but I didn't, so it's still secret. And it has to do with a battle attack plan for Iran. It's not a smoking gun, but it's surely a gun with Trump's fingerprint on it.
Trump used to have another lawyer. His name was Bill Barr. Well, he was Trump's attorney general, but he pretty much acted as Donald Trump's personal injury attorney. He did things like rewrite the Mueller report to make it look like Donald Trump was exonerated by Mueller, which he wasn't. In the second half of the Mueller report, Mueller outlines a pathway to prosecute Trump for covering up Russiagate. Read it. Well, Barr ended up resigning right after Trump lost, and he told the president he couldn't find any evidence of voter fraud. During the January 6 hearings, his testimony was, I looked for evidence, and all I found was, and I'm quoting the Attorney General, bullshit. He said it was all bullshit. Here is former Attorney General Bill Barr trying to re-burnish his sullied image by going after Donald Trump a little too late. Here he is on Sunday also saying things that Donald Trump doesn't want to hear.
I was shocked by the degree of sensitivity of these documents and how many there were, frankly.
Okay, you were shocked, but what are there, like 31 counts that he violated the Espionage Act? Don't you think that's a little extreme?
The government's agenda was to get those, protect those documents and get them out. And I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that. It was the right thing to do. And I think the counts under the Espionage Act that he willfully retained those documents are solid counts. Okay,
so give it to me straight. How bad is this?
If even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning. And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous.
Barr says Trump is toast, and then Barr tried to eat him. Mr. Former twice indicted President Donald Trump.
This vicious persecution.
He calls it a vicious persecution. What do you say, Bill Barr?
He's not a victim here. He was totally wrong that he had the right to have those documents. Those documents are among the most sensitive secrets that the country has. They have to be in the custody of the archivist. He had no right to maintain them and retain them. And he kept them in a way at Mar-a-Lago that anyone who really cares about national security, their stomach would churn at it.
Sensitive secret documents. The most sensitive and secret. You mean he had the Jeffrey Epstein files? He knew exactly how Jeffrey Epstein died? Is that what you're saying, Bill Barr? Well, Bill Barr isn't running for office, so he can speak freely. Mike Pompeo was thinking of running for president. Don't think that's going to happen, so having nothing to lose, here is Donald Trump's former CIA director, as well as his former Secretary of State. Here's Mike Pompeo on Monday talking about Donald Trump's mishandling of classified material.
First, if the allegations are true, and there's lots of indications that they are, President Trump had classified documents where he shouldn't have had them. And then when given the opportunity to return them, he chose not to do that for whatever reason. That's just, Brian, you talked about me having classified documents. I handled thousands and thousands of them over my time in Congress and then as a CIA director and Secretary of State. I suppose we can all make mistakes and get them to the wrong place, but when somebody identifies that, you got to turn them in. And so that's inconsistent with protecting America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And if the allegations are true, some of these were pretty serious, important documents. And so that's wrong.
That's a Republican who's not running for office. They have a lot of courage when they're not running for office. But here is Republican Congressman Ken Buck. He represents Colorado, and he's a member of the Freedom Caucus. He is a Republican, and he's not a nice Republican. He's ultra right wing. He is a member of the Freedom Caucus, and this week he began to urge his fellow Freedom Caucus members to vote to vacate the chair, which means get rid of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. Tough guy. Ken Buck was asked, I believe it was on CNN, what he thought of Trump's indictment. Now, you got to remember, Trump's chief of staff was Mark Meadows, one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan, right? Jim Jordan, one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus. Most of the members of Congress who asked for pardons after January 6 were members of the Freedom Caucus. They're big supporters of Donald Trump. Here is what the Freedom Caucus's Ken Buck said about the indictment.
Would you feel comfortable with Donald Trump as president again?
Well, I would not feel comfortable with a convicted felon in the White House. So we'll see how the case plays out, and we'll see how the evidence is presented and what the defenses are. But let's just look at Donald Trump's words in 2016. He said that Hillary Clinton was unfit for the White House because of the way she handled classified information. He said that she wasn't even qualified to have a low-level State Department job because of the way she handled information. So I think his words have set the standard that America will look at in determining whether he is fit for president.
How come the left doesn't have people like this? Nikki Haley was Donald Trump's ambassador to the UN. She's running for president against Donald Trump. Now, the rap against a lot of the candidates, all of the Republican candidates who are challenging Trump, the rap against them is they are too frightened to stand up to Donald Trump. But here is Nikki Haley.
If this indictment is true, if what it says is actually the case, President Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security. More than that, I'm a military spouse. My husband's about to deploy this weekend. This puts all of our military men and women in danger if you are going to talk about what our military is capable of or how we would go about invading or doing something with one of our enemies. And if that's the case, it's reckless, it's frustrating, and it causes problems. And, we're looking now, this is the second indictment. We're looking at possibly a third indictment coming in with Georgia.
Okay. So the follow-up question should be, your husband's about to be redeployed. Where's he going? And the answer is Africa, which begs the question, we have troops in Africa? Who are we fighting in Africa? Why don't we know about this? Is it classified? Who's our enemy in Africa? Why are we committing your husband, Nikki Haley? Why are we sending soldiers to Africa? Where was the declaration of war? But silly me, I still believe in the Constitution. New Jersey governor, former New Jersey governor Chris Christie he's running for president. And he had a CNN town hall Monday night. He's running against Trump. And here's what he had to say about the indictment.
His boxes, he wants his boxes near him. He flew the boxes up to New Jersey for summer vacation. What is this, like they're a family member? I mean, seriously, I got to have my boxes with me. And let me ask you a question. What exactly was he doing with them? Did someone remind him he's not the president anymore? You don't need these things anymore. This is vanity run amok, Anderson. Run amok, ego run amok. And he is now going to put this country through this when we didn't have to go through it. Everyone's blaming the prosecutors. He did it. It's his conduct.
And Senator Tim Scott, who's also running for president, called his Trump's mishandling of classified documents problematic. So a race is beginning to shape up. There are candidates who are beginning to criticize Mein Führer. And then there are people like her, Marjorie Taylor Greene. As the number of Trump critics grows inside the Republican Party, there are still the die-hard supporters like his opening act. She opens for him at all the rallies. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene from her congressional office responding to Donald Trump's arraignment on Tuesday. This is what she put out on social media.
Here they are, the Biden administration, arresting really their top political opponent and enemy. This is a communist country. We've been taken over. It's not the America that we all thought that we had. We're not a free country anymore.
Notice that these Republicans always, whenever they talk about tyranny and totalitarianism, they always say it's communism. They never say fascism because they don't have a problem with that variety of totalitarianism. They're fine with that. Communism is the problem, not fascism. This goes back to Charles Lindbergh. Well, the Georgia Congresswoman then took to the floor of the House to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter. I couldn't believe this. Here she is calling for a congressional motion to defund the police.
Today, I'd like to announce that I'm writing an appropriations rider to defund Jack Smith's special counsel, his office, and the investigation. This is a weaponized government attempt to take down the top political enemy and leading presidential candidate of the United States, Donald J. Trump. We cannot allow the government to be weaponized for political purposes.
Yes, this is why Mayor Suarez of Miami has to run for president. He didn't accept a bribe. The FBI and the SEC has been weaponized. When you're in trouble with the law, run for president. Senator Lindsey Graham is terrified that Donald Trump will out him. So he passionately stands by his man. But Lindsey likes to think he's principled. So he puts out tweets like this. This is how he plays verbal gymnastics in his own mind when he's defending Donald Trump. This is a tweet that Lindsey put out over the weekend. Most Republicans believe we live in a country where Hillary Clinton did similar things and nothing happened to her. Let me refresh your memory. Hillary Clinton ran for president in 2016. A lot of you have forgotten that. And so because she ran for president in 2016 and put some email on a private server and may have transmitted some classified documents accidentally, it's tantamount to treason, according to Republicans. That Hillary Clinton, look her up. She senator from New York. And this is the go-to talking point. What about Hillary? What about Hillary? So this is how Lindsey sleeps at night, and a quart of Jack Daniels. Most Republicans believe we live in a country. See, he's not saying it. He's just reporting what most Republicans believe. He's got too much dignity to say that, but he's just saying that this is what most Republicans believe. See, Lindsey's a lawyer, and as a lawyer, he feels, this is how he sleeps at night, along with a bottle of Jack Daniels. He feels, as a lawyer, it is my job to make the Republican case for the Republican voter. I'm the Republican voter's advocate. Whether or not I truly believe this doesn't matter. This is how people like Lindsey Graham justify their heinous behavior. In their mind, or at least this is how they rationalize having Charles Manson as the client, everyone deserves an advocate. And Lindsey convinces himself even Donald Trump deserves an advocate when you take your case before the court of public opinion. Here is a clearly hungover Lindsey Graham. Something. He's going to mention Hillary Clinton. And again, if you forgot, Hillary Clinton ran for president in 2016. And because she might have mishandled some classified material on a private email server, Donald Trump should skate.
Donald Trump has said repeatedly that he did nothing wrong. Do you believe that?
We live in an America where if you're the Democratic candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, you can set up a private server in your basement to conduct government business. And when an investigation is had about your activity, no, let me finish.
But you didn't answer the question.
That was ridiculous. Well, yeah, I'm trying to answer the question from a Republican point of view. That may not be acceptable on this show.
See what he's doing? I'm trying to represent the position from a Republican point of view. I'm advocating. I may not believe what I'm saying. I'm a lawyer. He was a JAG officer. And I'm a lawyer, so I'm just representing what the Republican people believe. Do you think he's hungover? You think he's hungover?
No, let me finish.
Okay. Let me finish. Finish what you were saying, or that bottle of tequila between your legs. John Brennan was Obama's CIA director.
Which is why I just find it so disheartening, and it makes me angry when I hear people like Lindsey Graham make excuses and apologies for Donald Trump. Those are the words of a spineless coward, quite frankly, who is frightened by Donald Trump and frightened by those individuals who still cling to this image of Donald Trump as being this very, strong leader, which he is not.
Okay. Here is Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, who married into wealth.
President Ford decided it was best for America not to pursue prosecution against President Nixon. President Trump pretty much made the same decision, decided not to pursue any kind of prosecution of Hillary Clinton.
No. FBI Director James Comey decided not to prosecute Hillary Clinton because it's not up to presidents whether or not to prosecute. This is a problem. Our Justice Department is in the executive branch, but there's a wall between the Justice Department and the Oval Office. And the Republicans have come up with this new narrative that the President of the United States, besides being the commander-in-chief, is also the chief law enforcer. This is the mind of a fascist. So according to Ron Johnson and all the Republicans, it's up to Joe Biden whether or not Merrick Garland and the special counsel Jack Smith prosecute Trump. No. The President of the United States is not the chief law enforcement agent. If you're a fascist, that's what you want. And this is why the Justice Department and the FBI have to be moved out of the executive branch.
Joe Biden could have made the exact same decision, but he didn't. He allowed a SWAT raid on a very secure residence of President Trump over federal records, even though he was holding classified records himself.
Okay. First of all, it wasn't a SWAT raid. The FBI had a warrant. Trump and his lawyers were alerted. That's why they moved the boxes. It wasn't a raid. Biden inadvertently took classified documents home with him, same way Mike Pence did. And when they were told those documents are classified, they immediately returned them. Trump, as the indictment so reads, continued to hide these classified documents from the Justice Department. Again, this narrative that Biden has the power over the Justice Department to decide whether or not to prosecute Donald Trump, it's a very dangerous narrative. It convinces Americans, it normalizes the idea that the President of the United States is the chief law enforcement agent in America. Very dangerous. And this is what the Republicans want because they're fascists. Well, here is lapdog Jim Jordan. He's Donald Trump's lapdog. He's currently the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. He's one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus. He would be attacking Kevin McCarthy, but Kevin McCarthy bought him off with the chairmanship of the House Judiciary Committee. Now, in the indictment, Trump is on tape waving a classified document saying he didn't declassify it. He said, I could have, I didn't, so I shouldn't be showing this to you. It's on tape in the indictment. But Jim Jordan doesn't care what the facts are. He says that Trump declassified it, even though Donald Trump said he didn't. Here he is Sunday on CNN with Dana Bash.
In this indictment, he states on at least one occasion that he did not declassify the information. When he's showing a document to somebody who doesn't have a security clearance, I might add, he says explicitly that it is classified. He didn't declassify it.
Dana, he has said time and time again he's declassified all this material. This is the most political thing
this is the most political thing. This is why politicians should not be on live television. They should be grilled on tape, and you stop and start, and you Google things, and you catch them in their lies. He just knows how to play out the clock on live television. You're not performing a public service when you interview somebody like Jim Jordan live on a Sunday morning show. He knows how not to answer a question. But if you tape the interview and say to him, I'll be here all day until you answer my question, but that requires actual journalism. Although Dana Bash is pretty great. So I'm not criticizing Dana Bash. And I actually saw Anderson Cooper today, and maybe he's licked free. Maybe they're great because they're licked free. Okay, more of Jim Jordan.
Okay, this is a very detailed indictment. A couple of things that you just said. Number one, the Secret Service, they are charged with protecting the president. They didn't even know, according to the indictment, that those documents were there. So that wasn't their job. Number two, do you have evidence that the president, when he was president, now former president, actually declassified these documents before he took them?
I go on the president's word, and he said he did. And the Supreme Court said that's what counts.
Okay, two things here. I go on the president's word, and he said he did. This is the same president who told 50,000 lies when he was president, according to the Washington Post. That's the first thing. And then Jim Jordan obfuscates and talks about the Supreme Court and tries to confuse the viewers. There's a Supreme Court ruling? Look, you cannot, if you're president of the United States, you cannot stand in front of classified documents, whip out your magic wand and say, illy meeny, chili beanie, these documents are now declassified. There are procedures. You have to take, if you want to declassify a classified document, you find out which agency, under the purview of which agency, spy agency, the document belongs to. And then, and this is from an executive order from a few years back, the president then has to go to the head of the agency as the president, and they have to fill out forms and explain why these documents are declassified. The president of the United States just can't willy-nilly declassify a document. Now, once again, Jim Jordan is a liar, a deceitful, pathological liar who takes a germ of information and then twists it. And what he is doing here is he's taking a Supreme Court ruling and misrepresenting the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that a president has some liberty when it comes to declassifying personal documents, like his own records, for his library, like his notes, the dictaphone, emails. But government documents, this is what the Supreme Court ruled. Government documents, if he wants to declassify government documents in the ruling that Jim Jordan cites, the Supreme Court says the president has to follow the proper procedures. You just can't whip out your magic declassifier wand. I'm not doing a good job explaining this, so here is former Attorney General Bill Barr explaining the Supreme Court ruling that Republicans are twisting into an erroneous talking point. Here is Bill Barr explaining why Jim Jordan is a pathological liar.
This idea that the president has complete authority to declare any document personal is obvious. It's facially ridiculous. That opinion had to do with the distinction between official records, which are records prepared by government agencies for the purpose of government action, and personal documents as opposed to official documents, which are things prepared by the president, such as a diary or notes, which are not used in the government's deliberations. And yes, as to the second class, stuff that the president himself generates, the president has some discretion. But these are official documents. It's inarguable. The president's daily brief provided by the intelligence community is not Donald J. Trump's personal document, period.
You see, this is what's wrong with journalism and live television, although I'm doing this live right now. Everybody thinks, if I can just get access to the people in charge, that's news. No, when you get access to the people in charge, they're in charge because they're really good at keeping secrets. Jim Jordan is really good at running out the clock, at lying. Real journalism is reporting what these people say and then fact-checking them. Reporting isn't interviewing people in charge. Real reporting is, I'm going to say this again, reporting what the people in charge say and then go out and prove they're liars. You're never going to catch them in a lie, especially on live television. They have coaches. They've been trained to play out the clock. Watching live Sunday morning shows is an exercise in futility. It really is. It's just to test these politicians to see how they hold up under pressure. But you learn nothing. You just hear spin and lies. Well, that's the argument. That is the argument. That's the defense and the accusation. People are accusing Donald Trump of mishandling classified material. There are some Republicans who aren't running for office who say if the indictment holds up, this is pretty bad. There are some Republicans who are saying that, including some Republican presidential candidates. And then there are the lapdogs, the people like Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are handed talking points and go out there and fight for the president. They try to sway the court of public opinion. And then there are people like Freedom Caucus member Andy Biggs, who was instrumental in the lead up to the January 6th insurrection, which is why he had to ask Donald Trump for a pardon after January 6th. And Andy Biggs, he doesn't believe in taking the argument before the American people. Andy Biggs tweets, "We have now reached a war phase, eye for an eye." He then walked it back. He got scared. And then there's Louisiana madman Clay Higgins, and he tweeted, President Trump says he has been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. He goes on to write, "This is a perimeter probe from the oppressors. Hold our POTUS has this. Hold our POTUS has this. Buckle up. 150K, know your bridges, rock steady, calm. That is all. It's QAnon speak. It's phony militaries. It's saying, get out your guns. There's going to be a revolution. This is Clay Higgins. Became a congressman because he couldn't be a police officer anymore because he kept beating up black suspects who were handcuffed. Bad guy, Clay Higgins. I think he's married 4 times. Not sure. Carrie Lake lost the race for governor of Arizona. She says she didn't. And she was there in Miami on Tuesday with the other idiots in 90-degree heat, showing solidarity with the president, who couldn't give a shit about anybody, including Carrie Lake. But she stood in front of the courtroom, the courthouse on Tuesday. Look at me, I'm Carrie Lake. Here she is, wanting to remain relevant. Here she is speaking over the weekend at a convention for Georgia Republicans. Here she is fighting for Donald Trump.
I have a message tonight from Merrick Garland and Jack Smith and Joe Biden. And the guys back there in the fake news media, you should listen up as well. This one's for you. If you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA. That's not a threat. That's a public service announcement.
The guns. The guns. The guns. So, Donald Trump. He's running from the law and for president. He's leading in the polls. This latest indictment, it might go to trial this year. Doubtful. There's talk that Judge Cannon could expedite this trial. These things take more than a year to go to trial. He has a trial in Manhattan. Alvin Bragg's case against him is scheduled for March of 2024, right after Super Tuesday. Then there's the Fulton County DA, who could indict Donald Trump in August for trying to throw the election in Georgia. And then there's the civil trial filed by New York State Attorney General Letitia James over Trump lying on his loans and his taxes. And then there's Jack Smith, the special counsel, who hasn't yet handed down the other indictments, like an indictment for the role Trump played in January 6th, or an indictment for Trump trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. And don't forget the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit now getting a second wind. And then there are all these other civil lawsuits from victims of January 6th. Here's the polling. This is the Real Clear Politics election averages. Kind of interesting. Nationally, Trump has 52% of Republicans voting for him. DeSantis has 22%. Pence has 4.7%. Nikki Haley, 3.3%. What's most important is Iowa. That's what kickstarts a campaign. Trump is leading in Iowa with 46%. DeSantis has 24.7%. Nikki Haley, 4.7%. Mike Pence, 3.7%. And in New Hampshire, Trump has 41%. DeSantis has 23%. Sununu, who's not running, has 14.3%. Governor of New Hampshire, favorite son. And Ramaswamy has 4%, but he's probably going to drop out. Well, somebody who's not showing up in the polls quite yet is Chris Christie. Now, Howie Klein and I were talking about this on Monday's show. In order to participate in the debates come August, the Republican Party says we will not allow you on the stage unless you promise to support whomever ends up getting the nomination. Donald Trump has not sworn the oath to support whoever gets the nomination, so he can't participate in the debate. Chris Christie has gone on record saying there is no way I will vote or support Donald Trump if he gets the nomination. And yet, he lied and said, I will support him. He's said openly, I lied in order to get on the debate stage in August. Now, he's not polling quite yet, so he may not have the poll numbers to get onto that stage. I said to Howie, Donald Trump is going to lie. He needs the fight. He's all alone. All he's got are his rallies and the arena, the debate stage. And here is Chris Christie kind of agreeing with me during Monday night's town hall on CNN with Anderson Cooper.
Loser, loser, loser.
I'm sorry, that was him saying hello to the audience. I played the wrong clip. That's just, let me play that again. That's Chris Christie. He's tough. He's from New Jersey. This is him just doing some crowd work.
Loser, loser, loser.
That's how I do stand-up. Here is Chris Christie being asked if he thinks Trump will be there for the first debate.
Do you think he'll show up to those early debates?
You bet he will. His ego will not be able to stop him. Or if he skips the first one, that'll be fine. Let him skip the first one. That'll give me absolute free lane. We'll do that once, Anderson. He'll be at the second one.
Now, I hate Chris Christie. He's just a bully. And I don't agree with anything he says. However, he's kind of interesting. He's going to make, look, the world is on fire. There's climate change. There's an eviction crisis. We have fascists who are running the Republican Party. But just in terms of entertainment, Chris Christie is going to make the first act of the presidential race really interesting because he's willing to take on Donald Trump. And what's going to be interesting is Chris Christie, he's pretty media savvy. He's been on ABC for the past couple of years, and he prepped Donald Trump for the 2020 debate. So here he is talking about how he's going to take on Donald Trump. And what's really interesting is he's just as arrogant as Donald Trump. And one of these two is going to fall, which will be nice. It'll be nice to see Chris Christie humiliated. Nice to see Donald Trump humiliated. Nice to see both of them humiliated.
We cannot let that happen this time, and I will not let it happen this time. I'm going to take him on directly, and not because I don't like him. I'm going to take him on directly because he's the leader. Like, how do you, that's why I don't understand the other candidates who won't even mention his name. I watched that Joni Ernst roast and ride thing. It was like he was Voldemort from Harry Potter. Like nobody wanted to mention his name. You know, someone who's leading backwards and looking backwards. Like, say his name, man, say his name, right? I mean, how do you beat someone if you won't talk about them? How do you beat them if you won't distinguish yourself from them?
He's making it interesting. He really is. And he insists he's not afraid of Donald Trump yet.
They're afraid of him. Look what he does. Right? I got a nickname now. I never got one all through 16. I got one now, which is really nice. Makes me feel even more important.
He got a nickname. Donald Trump gave him a nickname. I don't know what the nickname is. Does anybody know what the nickname is? Donald Trump he calls Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctimonious. And he has a nickname for Chris Christie. Anybody have an idea what Donald Trump's nickname would be for Chris Christie? I have no idea. No idea whatsoever what Donald Trump's nickname for Chris Christie is going to be?
I've known him for 22 years. The only thing he understands is force. The only thing he understands is coming right at him and making your case.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't won a damn thing since 2016. Three-time loser. 2018, we lost the House. 2020, we lost the White House. We lost the United States Senate a couple of weeks later in 2021. And in 2022, we lost 2 more governorships, another Senate seat, and barely took the House of Representatives when Joe Biden had the most incompetent first 2 years I've ever seen in my life. Loser, loser, loser. Now we're getting going, it'll be different this time. Why? Why will it be different this time? Those arguments need to be made, and I'm not afraid to make them for 2 reasons. 1, I'm not afraid of him. And 2, it's the truth.
Right. Why does he have to interrupt? He was doing really great, and then he has to turn on the crowd.
Loser, loser, loser.
What? Why? These are nice people, Chris Christie. They showed up to support you, and you have to say,
loser, loser, loser.
Well, anyway, he's going to make this an interesting race, because if he falls, it will be fun to watch him fall. If Trump falls, be fun to watch Trump fall. We'll follow this, of course. We're in the middle of a national emergency for the LGBTQ community. So it's important that you support the LGBTQ community. If you know anybody who is alone, I strongly urge you to call them and reach out, find out how they're doing. Something like 75 laws have been passed in state legislatures targeting this year. 75 state legislatures have passed anti-trans laws, bills targeting drag queens and the LGBTQ community. They are coming. Republicans are coming for the LGBTQ community because they offer voters nothing other than hate. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to Garth Brooks. I'm not a country music person, but he owns a bar in Nashville, and he's still serving Bud Light. And he says, I don't care what the boycott is. People have the right to love any way they want. So if you drink beer, buy Bud Light and support Garth Brooks. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Silvio Berlusconi, the right-wing media magnate who served as Italy's prime minister for 3 times, 3 separate terms, is dead from leukemia at the age of 86. Open Society Foundations, the charitable group run by 92-year-old George Soros, has been handed over to his son, Andrew. Andrew promises to continue his father's program of providing financial support to progressive causes and politicians, as well as keeping Jewish space lasers focused on Canadian wildfires. According to new data, the 20 countries in Europe that use the euro dipped into recession earlier this year. Europe as a whole is not in a recession, but countries like Germany, the 4th largest economy in the world, as well as Greece and Ireland, all entered a recession this year after experiencing 2 back-to-back quarterly slowdowns in their GDP. New York City's first female police commissioner, Keechant Sewell, has resigned after a year and a half on the job. Despite popular perceptions, the crime rate in New York City declined under her stewardship. The Federal Trade Commission has filed a restraining order to block Microsoft's nearly $70 billion purchase of gaming giant Activision, which some say would give Microsoft a significant lead in the burgeoning business of virtual reality. The European Union approved the merger. Great Britain rejected it. but Microsoft is appealing that decision. After Donald Trump's most recent indictment, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal asked in an editorial this question: do prosecutors understand the forces they are unleashing? The Rupert Murdoch-owned newspaper goes on to write, however cavalier Trump was with his classified files, he did not accept a bribe or betray secrets to Russia, unquote. It's nice that the Wall Street Journal knows something the rest of us don't. Meanwhile, the mayor of Miami is asking protesters to remain peaceful on Tuesday when Donald Trump appears inside a federal courtroom for his 37-count indictment. 3/4 of Republicans in a new poll say special counsel Jack Smith's indictment of Trump is purely political. But cracks are showing in the Republican Party. Republican Tim Scott, who's running for the nomination, calls the indictment a serious case with serious allegations. Nikki Haley, Trump's ambassador to the UN and currently running for the Republican nomination, called Trump's handling of the documents reckless. But Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy told reporters today that storing classified documents in a Mar-a-Lago bathroom is perfectly fine. He says the door had a lock. I wish I were making that up. That is what Speaker McCarthy said. Meanwhile, Howie Klein, running over it Down with Tyranny, says new polling coming out of Iowa shows Donald Trump with a staggering lead over his nearest competitor, Ron DeSantis. It's a lead of more than 20 points. And Howie says national polls show Trump leads DeSantis by more than double. Joining us in Los Angeles is Howie Klein, the founder, treasurer of the Blue America PAC. And of course, he writes Down with Tyranny, which everybody should read. Hello, Howie.
Hi. There was something I wanted to comment about in your news report. In
Okay.
fact, there were a few things, but I can't remember most of them. But I do remember one when you thanked the Wall Street Journal for that inside information about Trump not selling any secrets to Russia. I think the Wall Street Journal is right. I think he sold secrets to Saudi Arabia. Now, he may have sold them to other places as well. But there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever, no doubt that he sold secrets.
Go on.
And I don't mean that he meant to sell secrets or he was going to sell secrets. I'm sure that he did sell secrets. And, you know, the $2 billion that the Saudis gave Jared Kushner to invest, which comes to his stake in that is $25 million a year, not counting profits. That's just the interest, basically, or the amount they pay him to handle the money. Why did they give it to him? He certainly doesn't know anything about it. He never invested. He was never a hedge fund investor or anything like that. And that, in my mind, was Trump making a deal. There's no doubt in my mind that Trump, why did he steal some very, very specific pieces of intelligence and then refuse to give it back? And it was to sell it. I have a post up about it at Down with Tyranny that people should read. It's really good. And I found something that was written in the New York Review of Books by Fintan O'Toole, which was also excellent.
Okay.
But, when I started saying a month or two ago that Trump sold documents and that's why he stole them, people thought I was crazy. And now it's coming up more and more. And I'm looking forward to the day, and which will probably be months from now, that the Wall Street Journal says it as well. And that maybe they'll say, at least he didn't sell them to Russia.
Do you think we'll have a trial before the end of 2023? I've heard that it is conceivable that this trial could be expedited before the one in Manhattan. Is that what you're hearing?
We're better off if it's not, because, what they should do is expedite the one in Manhattan, because when he's sentenced, I realized that if you haven't been convicted before, you get a lot less time. So if he's convicted in New York and then he's sentenced in the federal case, he'll get considerably more time, between. If he's not we know he's a career criminal, but if he hasn't been sentenced to something before, he'll get between 17 and 22 years. If he has been sentenced before, he'll get more than 22 years. So I would like that to happen, although I don't see him really living more than 22 years anyway. Do you?
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, he's indefatigable. So does he need to keep classified documents to sell secrets to the Saudi Arabians? I mean, can't he just tell them the secrets without producing a paper trail? Isn't that his secret, that he doesn't use email, he writes nothing down? Why would he keep documents? Can't they just take him at his word?
No, because there were very, very specific things. For example, lists of names of Saudi agents that the CIA and the FBI were paying to spy. So there was, and Russians and Chinese and Israelis and everybody who we pay to spy, he's got their names. What is he supposed to remember that?
And then
he barely remembers the name of his cabinet members.
And that would compromise their lives.
Right, which happened once before in Russia, where there was some kind of a leak, which I saw at the time came from him, and dozens of Russians who were working for the CIA were killed.
Okay, but my reading, and this is just from reading, is that nobody has, when he was president, nobody really obeyed his orders. They knew to kind of keep things away from him. We knew he was flushing documents down the toilet and clogging the plumbing. So isn't it fair to say that they were pretty careful not to tell him important stuff?
Some important stuff. But he also had people working for him who were bad guys. So, right. There was some who tried to keep important stuff away from him, and they did as much as they could. And then there were others, like, what's his name? That monster from Santa Monica. I forgot his name.
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. Right. By the end, he was running the show, and he was getting Trump everything he needed. I mean, those boxes are not a random bunch of junk. There's, although there are some mementos that he wanted to take, but that doesn't mean anything. There are boxes full of very, very, very targeted, highly classified documents, including, by the way, documents that will never come out in court, that will never be discussed in court because they're too they're too classified. So some of the best stuff that could hopefully, I wish, get him in front of a firing squad. That's the kind of stuff that's not going to be available in court.
There'll be a special master, I assume, who's appointed.
I hope so. But the thing is that in order to use that, they could use that stuff. They can't use this stuff for the jury, so it's not going to really do any good. So what's the special master going to do? I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer. And you could say, well, the special master could tell the judge, or they could even show the stuff to the judge, but not this judge.
Right. All right, so let me push back just a little, because I've said some things on this show, and maybe I'm just trying to be too cool for school on Trump. But is it fair to say that we overclassify documents in the military? That there's
maybe.
That there's a self-importance that the CIA has and the NSA.
Yeah. I agree. But that doesn't mean that there's not some stuff that needs to be classified, and he got his hands on it. So in other words, some stuff they classify that doesn't need to be classified, no doubt about it. But, nuclear secrets, the U.S. attack plans for various countries, I mean, those do need to be classified, and he got those things.
Yeah, but
names of agents, that jeopardizes their lives.
Right.
He got that. So there are things that he got his hands on that are very unfortunate.
Okay. But before we move on, go ahead.
My dream is they put him in front of a firing squad. That's what I want more than anything. I will feel that I had a good life if that happens.
Okay. What happens if, first of all, is he going to get a mugshot on Tuesday? Is he going to be fingerprinted? And he's got to post bail? I mean, is it conceivable that he has to drop out of the race, even though he says no?
No, it's not conceivable that he has to drop out of the race. I don't think that he's going to make him post bail. I wish they would take away the key to his plane and his passport. Right. But yes, he'll have to be fingerprinted, and they will photograph him. But they did that last time as well. It's not like some mugshot, face on and then face right and face left. That's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, he's being arraigned. All that kind of stuff is going to happen.
Right. And
in terms of bail, I cannot imagine that they're going to make him take post bond. I mean, it's just inconceivable to me.
Right. You're moving away from the phone. So if I could just get you were sounding really great, and now it sounds like you're preparing dinner. What are you making?
I'm not making dinner. I'm fasting today. I was just what I was doing was taking my vitamins.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the polls. What has to happen for Republican voters to turn on Trump? Not get indicted again? What has to happen for them to not trust him?
Well, it's not going to be Republican voters. In other words, it's slowly but surely, very slowly, his base is shrinking. So they're not as a body, Republican voters aren't going to turn on him. But now there are 35% or so of Republican voters who now say they believe the indictment or the indictment is fair and serious. So yeah, slowly, some are weaning away from him. The rest that are in there, that's 60 or so percent, nothing. There's nothing he can do. He would have to say to them, "I've been lying to you all along." Something like that to get him away. They don't care. They don't care about anything that we care about. They are as bad as they're worse than him.
And talk to me about the talk to me about the calendar. August is the first debate. He says he doesn't want to lower himself and debate DeSantis and Tim Scott and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie, but he's an attention whore and he lives for the fight. Can he resist the debates?
Well, can he even be allowed to be in the debates? You have to sign a real pledge that says that you will support the ultimate winner.
Right.
And he's not going to do that.
Right. But
I mean, unless he does it with his fingers crossed, I don't know.
So you don't think Chris Christie says he will not support Trump if he's the nominee, but he lied like a good Republican to get into the debate. So all Trump has to do is, I don't think he can resist the fight. I think he's a performer. If he has no audience,
so he can perform. He can get time on Fox. Oh no, this is a Fox thing, right? He can get time on CNN or time on some other network and do his own thing at the same time that they're doing their thing.
But isn't his pathology being the bullfighter, going in for the kill and making people...
How about destroying their whole event? That's him.
I think he will get off on destroying Chris Christie and Nikki Haley.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to debate the first time. He'll debate other times, but I don't think he's going to debate the first time. But I could be wrong. I also heard today, and you may have as well, that freaky guy Ramaswamy is going to drop out tonight or tomorrow and endorse Trump.
Okay. Yeah.
You weren't worried about him?
I wasn't worried about him. What I'm worried about is Joe Biden not being able to debate Trump in the general election because he wasn't sharpened by debating Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. Shouldn't Joe Biden, for the good of his own campaign, debate these two?
Oh, I think he should, yeah.
But he won't.
Apparently, he's been saying that he won't, or his campaign is saying that he won't. But I think that's a mistake on a lot of levels. Marianne is a very, very good debater. I don't know RFK, it's a psychopath, and I don't know why anyone would debate him. But Marianne is a really, really good debater. and he'd be better off practicing with her. But I guess he figures she's so part of the left that it's not real practice. And he'll have people to practice. You know, someone will play Trump in a debate with him, something like that.
The polling,
they'll do mock.
I keep thinking Trump is funny. I keep thinking of Joe Biden as a disappointment because he's not Bernie. But in the back of my mind, I think he has a legislative record he can run on now. None of it is enough. But if you're a low information Democratic voter, you think Joe Biden is the second coming of FDR. So I haven't been too worried about his second term, at least winning the second term. But I'm looking at polling now. He's underwater. His approval rating is underwater. DeSantis beats him, and now Trump is beating him.
Really? I just saw Trump beat him in one outlier poll.
So you don't worry that Biden could end up losing?
Not to Trump.
Not to Trump. Okay, let's talk about Silvio Berlusconi, a precursor of Donald Trump, media magnate. He actually had money, unlike Trump. A right-wing force. Has the fever broken in Europe when it comes to fascism, authoritarianism? I know Italy just elected a fascist, but she's maybe not as the party has its roots in Mussolini, but has the fever broken in Europe? The fascist?
Wow, I don't know why you would even ask that. No. I mean, look at that. The Nazi party in Germany is way up more than they've ever been before. So what makes you ask if the fever is broken? I don't know where it's coming from.
I just wanted to get your take because you've been writing about Hitler and the Nazis and Trump being the Nazis. And I've been reading about the polling in the lead up to World War II here in the United States. The question asked of Americans in the late 30s and right before Pearl Harbor, Gallup used to say, what do you prefer, communism or fascism? Because that was a choice in the 30s. And Americans, by a significant margin, preferred fascism to communism. And there was a significant, there was a small segment of our country, as you know, and you write about, who preferred fascism to whatever system of government we had going at the time. So there are fascistic strains that go deep into our roots, aren't there?
Yes. I mean, the Know Nothing movement and now the MAGA movement, those are authoritarian fascist movements. Absolutely.
But do they know? Yes. Do they know they're fascists? Are they gaslighting themselves when they're
gaslighting themselves? And they call normal Americans fascists. It's funny,
right?
I mean, they don't. I don't think they even. Most of them don't know what a fascist is, and they don't know that they're fascists themselves. And what are you going to say?
Right. Who knows that they're a fascist? DeSantis? Does DeSantis know he's a fascist?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I never met him or spoke to him, but my guess is that he does not think of himself as a fascist. I also think that he probably thinks he's putting that what he's doing is mostly an act. His people, I think we talked about this last week, his people told a bunch of big donors in Miami a couple of weeks ago that he's going to move to the center once he beats Trump. That this isn't the real him. This is just to win the primary. He's got to be this way.
They've also told migrants in Florida not to leave the state, ignore the laws that we just passed, terrorizing you. It's just political. It's just there to scare you, but we really don't mean it. How
about the ones they're shipping around the country?
Yeah. What's the best thing that can come out of this in 3 years? Any chance DeSantis is completely destroyed by Trump and is just has to go the Paul Ryan route, just collect his favors, get paid back for his favors? in the private sector?
Well, I mean, look, that would be pretty ideal. Trump destroys DeSantis, and then Trump loses to Biden.
Right.
Isn't that what we want?
Yeah, but I want more than that. I want these people destroyed. I think they're very dangerous. And
well, I've been saying Trump for firing squad.
Trump for firing squad. You say that the IQs. What did you say? The average IQ is 100 in this country, or I don't know anything about IQ.
The median IQ is 100. That's how they figure it out.
Okay.
So in other words, if the median is 100, then there's an equal number of people who have more than 100 IQ to the people who have less than 100 IQ. And once you start getting down to like around 80, which would be the average Trump voter, you can't think abstractly anymore. You don't have the capacity to think in abstracts.
Right. Let's go over.
And that's what we've got.
We're talking with Howie Klein. He's the founder and treasurer of the Blue America PAC, which raises money for progressive candidates around the country. Who are the candidates? I understand Mabee was very happy with the fundraiser we did for her.
Yeah, she did very well.
Good. So let's do another.
Now the thing is that Mabee needs a lot. Mabee needs a lot of help. She's running in a rich district with a lot of self-funders. There's an actor in there. There's a bunch of like rich people who think, they see, wow, there's an open seat, I'll run.
Right.
And people are willing to put up a lot of money, and Mabee doesn't have any money. So the little fundraiser that we did for her that brought in a lot of money was a really good thing, but she needs a lot more than that.
So let's do another fundraiser for her.
Yeah, we could do another fundraiser for her, I'm sure.
And who's the new candidate you wanted to tell us about?
Aaron Regenberg, and that's pretty urgent because it's not for 2024; it's for this year. It's an open seat in Rhode Island because
Cicilline,
the incumbent Cicilline, right? David Cicilline is leaving, so a very strong progressive. He's gone, so it's an open seat. And most of the Democrats who are running, and it's a Democratic district, it's not going to go Republican, and most of the Democrats who are running are very corrupt conservative Democrats. They're awful. And then
who's the one who works with Gina Raimondo? Who is
all of them? They're all.
But isn't there one who's gay and not a Biden flunky?
There's one who's gay and very conservative, and he's really bad.
Oh, okay.
And he was a Raimondo person.
Okay. So who do we like?
But really, Aaron Regenberg is the guy. He was in the state legislature. He was excellent. And he's, all of everything in his record points to him being a very, very good member of Congress. Certainly at least, and I really mean at least, as good as David Cicilline. And I like Cicilline. So why don't we should have him on the show so he can talk to himself.
Cicilline was big. Cicilline was big on antitrust. I liked him.
Yeah, me too. Cicilline was very good. And I'll tell you something. When Cicilline ran the first time, there was someone else running to his left. So I was not a huge fan of Cicilline.
I remember this,
but once he got in, he really, really was good. And you know what I've noticed? That a lot of people who are, kind of progressive-ish, when someone way to their left runs against them, they turn into someone really good. Because they fear that force from the left.
Right.
And I've seen it again and again and again. I mean, like even in this, this guy Dan Goldman.
Yes, the prosecutor from New York. He's fantastic. I didn't vote for him. Who did I want? I wanted somebody else. Who did I want?
I can't pronounce her name, but she's an Asian woman.
Because he's like a multi-billionaire, and he's kind of a neo.
Yeah, that's right.
But we need him prosecuting the Republicans with Jamie Raskin.
Not just that, but he's also voting great. He turned into someone really good. He realizes that district, could turn on him on a dime. He was lucky because he didn't get a majority. He was lucky because there were so many candidates. And if he's not progressive, they'll kick him out. So he's being very, very progressive. And he's an excellent, although You know what? He's sometimes excellent. He's usually excellent. I heard, this weekend, he was on one of the talking head shows, and I noticed that the Republican who was on the show, Jim Jordan, was really talking right to that 100 IQ person, right to the center. Whereas Goldman was talking over the heads of most people, saying things that he could say when he's talking to his colleagues in Congress or talking to a university audience or something like that. But it didn't work on I don't know, what show is that again? Oh, I know, State of the Union on CNN. He was on State of the Union, and I thought he talked over the heads of too many people. But in Congress, he's great.
Yeah,
when he debates, he's one of the better ones.
Yes, absolutely. Before you go, you said something just now that's really important, and this is why you have to donate to candidates, even if they're not going to win. You just said that Cicilline out of Rhode Island, I remember this, you were not a fan of his, but because you personally ran a candidate to the left of him in the Democratic Party, he is now frightened of the left and bends towards the left. So you don't necessarily have to win these elections. The candidates we support don't necessarily have to win.
Sometimes they do win, by the way.
Right.
I mean, I didn't think that AOC was going to win. I thought that was absurd. Right. But we supported her anyway, and she did win.
And had she not won, the bag man, Crowley, was that his name?
Yes, Joe Crowley.
He would never have bent to the left, right? There's nothing. There's some people who are incapable of it. What do we have to look forward tomorrow over Down with Tyranny? That's the big story.
Oh, I write them and I forget them, but I can tell you in a second by pulling up the scheduled stories, and which is what I'm doing right now. It sometimes takes a minute, but here it comes. So tonight I've got one asking if Putin is going to suffer the same fate as Nicholas II, which I had fun writing. Then I start the day off tomorrow with a story about Clay Higgins, who is the most sort of violent member of Congress. He's a Louisiana congressman. He's a 3%er and an oath keeper, and was giving kind of secret information, or coded information on Twitter about how his followers should take bridges or something to hold the bridges.
Yeah. He's something, a racist out of Louisiana who married several times. And as you just said, he's openly admitted four times. Openly admitted to being a 3%er. And Andy Biggs
proud of it.
Yeah. And Andy Biggs is at it again, saying this is war, eye for an eye. Same guy who had to come ask for a pardon for January 6th.
But Andy Biggs doesn't hit people. Clay Higgins is a physical guy who actually beat up a protester while he was a congressman. So he's something else. So I have a story about him, and then I do one. I'm sure you do remember when both Trump and Ivanka said before Trump was in office that Trump would only hire the very best people. Mm-hmm. So I have a story about all the names that he has called all the members of his cabinet after he fired them or they quit. Well, actually most of them quit, and just calling them horrible names. Horrible names.
He called Barr a pig, right?
A disgusting pig.
A disgusting pig. All right. There's one question my listeners want me to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Is Ivana Trump's grave going to be exhumed? You've heard these rumors, right?
Just from you.
That he buried her along with the some classified documents.
Possible. I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think that they're going to exhume her grave. But who knows? Who knows? The thing is, like, whoever would have thought that we would have a president like this monster we have.
Oh, no, had a president. Listen, the current guy is not as bad, sort of.
The current guy is just like all the same as all of the other Democratic and Republican congressmen that we've had since I began on this earth. Just another mediocrity who wound up being president of the United States.
Right.
Shame.
Howie Klein, I love you. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. That's Howie Klein from Down with Tyranny. Read him every day over at Down with Tyranny and give to his candidates. Blue America PAC gives to all the great progressive candidates who are running. That's it. If you enjoyed this episode of The David Feldman Show and found it informative, please share it with a friend.